Hi there. In this lesson, we're going to learn a property called the z-index. First, we're going to discuss how the z-index works in our presentation, and then we're going to look at some real examples. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is create three divs with classes A, B, and C in HTML. And then in CSS, we're going to specify background color orange for the class A, background color green for class B, and background color blue for class C. Alright, so as a result, we got three blocks, an orange one, a green one, and a blue one. As you can see, the blocks are positioned one below the other. That is, according to the normal flow. And we already talked about this in the previous lessons, so this should be pretty familiar to you. Then we're going to set position relative for all the divs. And let me remind you that when we use position relative, all the blocks get positioned relative to their normal position. So we talked about that in the lesson on position. And if you need to go through that again, you can revisit that lesson. Okay, then we write left 70 pixels for class C. And as you can see, now our blue block moved to the right by 70 pixels relative to its normal position. And after that, we can write bottom 150 pixels, for example, and our block is going to move to the top. It's going to move up by 150 pixels relative to its normal position. Alright, so now let's set the z-index property for the blocks. And the value of the property gets written in the form of a number without any unit of measurement. And you can set both negative and positive numbers, and 0 of course. So by the way, 0 is the default value. So what we're just going to write, z-index1 for class A. For class B, we're going to write z-index3. And for class C, we're going to write z-index2. Now, let's see how our blocks are going to be positioned. The green block with z-index3, that is, the block with the highest value, gets placed in front of all the other blocks. And the orange block with z-index1, that is the block with the lowest value, gets the position behind all the other blocks. The blue block with z-index2 is positioned between the orange and green blocks, which makes sense. So the z-index allows us to control the positioning of the blocks relative to each other, how they are placed. The block with the highest z-index value is always going to be in front of all the other blocks, and the block with the lowest z-index value is going to be behind all the blocks. And the other ones are going to be somewhere in between. Let's consider another example. For that, we're going to change the z-index from 1 to 3 for class A, and from 3 to 1 for class B. Alright, so the blocks are going to change their positioning relative to each other. Do you see that? So the orange block with the z-index value of 3 is now in front of all the other blocks. The green block is behind all the other blocks because it has the lowest z-index value, 1 in this case. The blue block is between the orange and the green one. Okay, so one thing I need to point out here is that the z-index property is only going to work when the blocks have the property position with values relative or absolute. So if we don't specify position relative or position absolute, the z-index is not going to work. Now let's move on to some real examples so we can make this all more clear. Here we have an HTML page in which we created three blocks, A, B, and C. And in CSS we specified background color orange for the block A, background color green for the block B, and blue for the block C. So this is how it looks like right now. And let's also set bottom 150 pixels and left 70 pixels for the block C. And on top of that, we're going to add position relative for all the blocks to activate both the bottom and the left. Let's see if that works. Alright, so now our blue block is positioned right here. And at the moment, it's positioned in front of all the other blocks. Why is that? Well, that's because it takes the last place in HTML. So by default, z-index value of all blocks equals 0. And the blocks are just positioned relative to their order in HTML. So now let's write z-index 3 for block A, and z-index 2 for block B, and z-index 1 for block C. Alright, let's save that and see what we have. So now block C, the third one, is placed behind all the other blocks, and that's because the z-index is 1. But if we change the value to 2 and also set 1 for block B, then it's going to be between block A and block B, because its value is 2. Okay, we were using the values 3, 1, and 2, but that doesn't mean that we only have to use these values. The main thing is the order of these numbers, the relationship between them. So as long as one is more than the other, that means that the block is going to be placed above the other. For example, if we want the orange block to be in front of the other blocks, then it should have the highest z-index value. And so it can be 3, 30, could be 300, it doesn't matter. And if we want the blue block to be behind all the other blocks, then again we just need to keep the order. But it could be any number. For example, we could even write -1000. Block C should be between them, because in this case the number should be between -1000 and 300. So, is 2 between those two numbers? Yes, it is, because it is within that range. Okay, so let's refresh the page. And as you see, nothing changed, because the order is still the same. But as soon as we write something like -300 here, what's going to happen? The following is going to happen. Block B still has the lowest number, -1000. Now block A has -300, so it's in between. And the blue block is going to be in front of all the others, because now it has the highest z-index value. And indeed, that's exactly what we've got. So this is how the z-index property works. That's it for this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.